Well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening for Money Matters, brought to you by Pima Community College and the First Year Experience Program, along with the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships and OneAZ Credit Union. We are excited to talk to you tonight about our featured topic, which is savings. But first, while we give everyone some time to get logged in and settled, we're going to go over some quick Zoom housekeeping tips. Please know that you are welcome and able to rename your Zoom profile to show us your first and last name, as well as your pronouns if you wish. This helps us get to know you a little bit better, but it also helps us grant proper attendance credit where it is due. And for those of you who attend all 3 Money Matters events throughout the spring semester, you will have an opportunity to win a $250 tuition award to apply towards your courses at Pima. So again, us being able to grant that proper attendance where it is due is really helpful. So if you haven't done so already, please feel free to go down to the bottom of your Zoom toolbar, click on those 3 little dots that say more, find your name on the participants list, and then rename your Zoom profile. Second, please know that this presentation is being recorded for educational and promotional purposes. We will be sharing tonight's recording on our YouTube page, and we will share the links with you to that in a little bit through Zoom chats. And that way you can always go back and reference what you learned. That YouTube page is at Pima Student Engagement. If you do not want to be part of the recording, then you are welcome to leave your camera off. Otherwise, we welcome and encourage you to turn it on. Helps us get to know everyone a little bit better as well. So right now I see Juanita with us and Steve. There's Scott. Good to see you again, Scott. And Naomi. Got a great looking group tonight. I'm excited to have you all joining us. Thank you. There's Glenda. Oh, this is going to be a good night tonight. Leora, hello. Please know that captions are available, so if that would help you with tonight's event, again, go back down to that Zoom toolbar and then click on the option under 3 dots to show subtitles and enable those captions for you. Also, please make sure that your microphones are muted unless you are the one who's speaking. And for those of you who are speaking, make sure that mute button is off. And so this helps us just be able to pay attention to the speaker and easily hear them and what they have to share. However, we want this event to be a fun space where you get your questions answered. So if you haven't done so already, please go to that Zoom chat box and feel free to ask any questions that you might have throughout tonight's event. And if we're not able to answer your question immediately, we will save it and have plenty of time for Q&A throughout the event. Also, in addition to wanting this event to be a fun space, we also want it to be a safe space. So please make sure that you keep all conversation respectful, civil, and clean. Last but not least, please make sure that you complete our feedback survey at some point in time throughout tonight's event. We will be sharing that tiny URL with you at the end. But in addition to you being able to share with us your feedback, that is also going to be how we track attendance, so that, again, you can have an opportunity to win that $250 tuition award. Now, there's going to be some additional prize opportunities throughout tonight's event to win some Pima swag items. And so if you're not already doing so, please take a moment to follow us on our social media pages. For the First Year Experience Program, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the handle @PimaFYE. And then on Instagram, you can also find the Financial Aid and Scholarships Office through the handle @pima.financialaid.scholarships. We are going to be selecting 2 random winners for whoever follows us tonight, 1 from each channel, and then we will announce the lucky winners and share with you what your prizes are later towards the end of tonight's event. And again, if it hasn't been said already, this should emphasize just how excited we are about this opportunity. You have a chance to win a $250 tuition award by attending all 3 Money Matters events. And so again, to help get you that credit for tonight, A, make sure your Zoom profile shows us your first and last name, and B, make sure that you complete that feedback survey when we share the link with you in a little bit. Now, there has been a great team who has helped put together tonight's activities, so I want to make sure that we give them a chance to introduce themselves. So let's go ahead and begin with Carla from Financial Aid.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks, Renee. My name is Carla Gonzalez. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am the Assistant Director of Scholarships and Outreach, and I'm very excited to be here today. My role here with the college is helping students get scholarships and learn about financial information, financial literacy, financial aid, and scholarships. So thank you. The next person.
Hi, everyone. My name is Juanita Bonias, and I work with Carla in the Scholarships and Outreach Department. So we do everything scholarships. We do all outreach things at the high schools in our community and things like that, and stuff like this event tonight. Go ahead, Tony.
Cool. My name is Tony, and I do the same thing. I work with the Office of Financial Aid. I work for Carla, and I work with Juanita. And like I said, we're here to help you with your financial aid questions and your scholarship questions. So thank you for joining us.
And for those who I have not yet met, I am Renee Forsyth. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I lead the first year experience program. And our mission is to get Pima's new students connected with the college and our resources to help you get engaged and on your way to completing your goals. And then we have from OneAZ Credit Union, Patrick.
Yeah, so my name is Patrick Munga, and I am with OneAZ Credit Union. I'm definitely glad to be a part of this event. I've actually been a part of the previous events we had last year. So this is the first one for the year, and I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of fun and make it exciting. Previously, I was the workplace banking program manager, but I've since been promoted to branch manager over here at the Oracle location. So for anyone that would like to come visit me, please feel free to come on down, and I'll be happy to talk to you.
Also, as a fun side note, Patrick is a Pima graduate, and so he is evidence of what a Pima education can do, and we're so proud to be working with him again.
That is right. Yes. So Pima is what gave me the foundation, and as far as the success that I've achieved, you know, in the workspace, I definitely did give credit to Pima for that foundation. So you're definitely in the right place, and just take advantage of every resource that you can get your hands on. And I do believe Pima will get you where you need to go and where you want to be in life. So yes, I'm definitely glad to be an alumni.
Well, again, as we mentioned, our featured topic for today is savings. And so if you will bear with me one moment, I am going to pivot to our video. And this is just going to be a brief introduction of what we are going to be discussing throughout tonight.
Start by opening a savings account at your local bank or credit union. Make saving a priority. Saving money should always be a priority. Start by opening a savings account at your local bank or credit union. Consider setting up automatic monthly payments into your savings account. Include this monthly savings amount in your budget. Setting money aside each month allows you the flexibility to live on your own terms. If you have money saved, you're better prepared to handle unexpected costs, such as medical bills, car repairs, or losing a job. Saving money allows you to travel and explore. It also allows you to invest in interests or hobbies you enjoy. You may want to look into saving for the future, purchasing a car, a house, or putting away money for retirement. It's important to have a goal when saving money. Having a goal will help you determine your budget for other items.
All right, so we are
How
going
to
to
save
now
on
pass
discretionary
the mic back
expenses.
over to Patrick, and he's going to go into some more detail about what we need to know when it comes to savings. Take it away.
Thank you so much. So yeah, the topic speaks for itself. Saving in itself is a daunting task. At least for me, I know it's always been something that I'm always working on, right? And over the years, it's just one of those things where you try to work on how can I do better in saving? How can I have a savings account and not touch or not have the attempt to touch the money, right? For me, I know it's one of those things where I have a savings account and something comes up throughout the week and I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't have any money in my checking account. So what do? I touch my savings, right? And that's really, for the most part, that's usually how it all unfolds for everyone else. So what you want to do is ask yourself, how do I save for a big purchase, right? And like anything else, let's just say you have a goal. It may be a daunting task at that moment, but if you break it down and you have a strategy and be intentional about what you're trying to accomplish, it's not that difficult, right? So the goal at this point here is for me to go ahead and share some information as far as how to break it down on how to utilize every tool at your disposal when it comes to banking in itself. And everyone here may have a checking account and they may have a savings account. So it's important to understand how to utilize those tools, right? So when we go to the next slide here, be able to see. So what's the difference between a checking and a savings account? So with a savings account, it's one of those things where you want to utilize it to where you don't touch it. It's out of sight, out of mind. And then, of course, with a checking account, it's going to be your transactional account. That's the account you're going to use to, use for spending on your day-to-day needs, whether it be your discretionary needs or any flexible spending needs as well. And that's basically one of the differences. The other thing, too, is that the checking account does not bear any interest, whereas a savings account bears some interest. So we're going to go into more detail here as we go along, and this is just kind of giving you an idea of what we'll be talking about here. So slide 8, please. Now, what's the difference between a savings and a money market account? So that's also another tool that you can use, is either a savings account or a money market account. So we'll break that down. So with the savings, as we discussed, it's out of sight, out of mind. The money market account, the only difference is that you bear a little bit more interest as opposed to a savings account. So that's one of the differences. But again, we'll go into detail as far as how we'll utilize these tools. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right. So one of the things you want to do is pay yourself. And essentially paying yourself is really just how you utilize the accounts that we talked about, whether it be the savings account or the money market account or the checking account. So how you utilize those and how you set them up is really how you're going to determine how you pay yourself. So we'll go into detail in the sense of if you have broken down different accounts, because you can have more than one account. So you can have 2 checking accounts or 3 checking accounts or even savings accounts, right? But how you utilize them is really what's going to help you accomplish your goals. Next slide. All right, so once you get your paycheck, mostly like everybody else, normal is you get your paycheck and then you pay your expenses, right? You pay your utilities, whatever the case may be, anything that you need to pretty much keep your household running is basically what you do. So you pay that out, and then whatever is left over, then you will go ahead and you put it in your savings account. That in itself is a strategy that everyone's been utilizing. The only problem with that is that once you pay everything out and then you start using the savings account, you kind of tap into it, just like I've always done it. I've always tapped into that savings account. So we're going to go ahead and go into more detail as far as how you want to kind of change that narrative and kind of break out of that cycle. So that way we can be better off and be a lot stronger when it comes to saving and being more intentional about it. All right, next slide. So on this other slide, it's going to show you exactly what normal looks like, which is basically, of course, those boxes. I'm sure everyone would know that that's Amazon. At least for me, in my case, is one of those things where I'm shopping online, right? I got my paycheck, I paid my bills, but now I have this money that's left over and it's in my savings. I kind of want that new, bike, or I want that new iPhone, or I want, the new shoes, right? So then you have all those boxes, and that's what normal looks like for the most part. At least speaking for myself, that's how it looks like. So how can we break that cycle? And this is basically what we're trying to do, and be intentional about that as well. All right, so next slide is going to go ahead and show you exactly how it looks like. So your paycheck comes through, you pay your cell phone, your subscription, which would be Netflix, maybe Hulu, Amazon Prime, that comes out of there. Then you have your rent and your mortgage, you pay that out. And of course, you want to go out and eat. So again, you spend that and you go and you go out and you go eat and have a good lunch or whatever the case may be. Then of course your internet is paid out. Then you want to have some fun, maybe go to a movie, or and then get groceries for the family so everyone can eat, right? So that's basically how the paycheck is spent. And then the next thing you know, you're like, wait, what happened to my money? You don't know, because you're not intentional about every dollar, right? So for anyone that knows of Dave Ramsey, is one of the people that I actually follow. He actually has a strategy where you have an intention for every dollar that you have in your paycheck, what happens to it, right? Yeah, you have a budget for it, which is of course a topic for another day. But lastly, your paycheck, after everything is spent out, then that goes into your savings, right? And again, that's just the cycle we're trying to break, is putting everything into your savings and then still tapping into it. You want to get to the point where once it's in your savings, you can't touch it. No matter what, you cannot touch it. And that's something that I struggle with even till this day, until I decided to start putting all my savings, or basically everything that I have left over, I put it into my investments, because I won't be able to touch it. So that's basically another way that I've been able to overcome that impulse kind of spending. All right, next slide, please. All right, so the paycheck comes through, goes to the savings, and we went over everything as far as how it's spent. So the next slide will show you exactly how to kind of think about how you want to spend or how you want to save your money in that regard. So next slide. All right, so what is important to you? It's important to ask yourself that. So you have mandatory expenses, and then you also have discretionary expenses as well. So the mandatory expenses are going to be basically your mortgage, your rent, transportation, electricity, insurance, water bill, gas bill, and all other utilities. These are things that you have to think about as something you need, right? As opposed to a want, which is going to be discretionary. So if you go ahead and click on it again, Renee, it'll bring up the discretionary expenses there. All right. So with the discretionary expenses, you want to think about entertainment. You want to think about online shopping, going out to eat, travel, streaming services like Hulu, Netflix, and then maybe home goods, home decor. I mean, don't judge me, but I also go to Home Goods. And then, of course, the gym. But you'd be amazed how many people have all these streaming services that they don't really even watch all the time. Like I'm guilty of it, because usually when I get off, I just want to go home and sleep. But I have Netflix, I have Hulu, and I'm still not utilizing that, right? It could also be the gym. A lot of people have gym memberships, but they still keep paying those monthly dues, yet they don't go and they don't utilize the facilities. Again, I'm guilty of that sometimes, where I don't utilize it. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, is it something I need, right? So that's basically what you want to think about. All right, and then next slide is going to be a video. We're going to go ahead and just look at discretionary items. It's going to kind of align with the savings aspect of it as well.
How to save on discretionary expenses. Here are a few ways to save on discretionary spending like eating out and entertainment. 1. make coffee at home. Even if you use a single-serving coffee maker, you are spending 45 cents to 65 cents per cup. If you go to your local coffee shop, you are spending anywhere from $2 to $5 for regular coffee or espresso drinks. 2. Eat at home or pack food to go. Eating out is expensive. Consider cooking with roommates or friends. 3. Look for promotional student discounts for entertainment like concerts or movies. 4. Cable TV is a discretionary expense. Call the provider to negotiate a better rate, or consider changing services. 5. Before making a purchase, think about it for 24 hours. Determine whether or not the purchase is a necessity.
How to save on flexible expenses.
All righty. So basically with the discretionaries, it's just kind of taking the time to think about whether you need something that bad, right? You can save a lot of money by, rather than going to Panera Bread and buying a sandwich, you can get the ingredients that you need to make a sandwich at home and save on that. Or it could be coffee, right? You can either go to Starbucks and spend $5 on that coffee, or you can get, your own coffee and then make it at home and save on that $5 and get that $5 and throw it into your savings, right? So there's definitely certain ways that you can save on discretionary expenses to make certain changes. And I implore you to basically make those changes as soon as today, right? If you feel like you're not saving enough, or if you feel like you don't have enough saved, just try to make those different changes. Think about it. Is it something I need, or is this something that I really have to have right now, right? So that's basically another way to think about it. So the discretionary expenses, usually a lot of people will spend on all the discretionary expenses first, and then neglect the mandatory expenses, right? And then they're now living paycheck to paycheck, trying to find a way to catch up, right? So next slide, please. And this one is just going to illustrate, sometimes it'll be you have your savings, and then you basically take care of all your expenses, as the mandatory expenses. But again, you have all your money in your savings. Some people do it that way. And then the one thing to remember is that with the savings account, you only have about 6 transactions that you can use, or you can transact, if you will. And then at which point on the 7th, you're going to get charged for actually going over that. So there's limitations, because it's basically set up to where you don't touch that money. And that is why it's set up that way. So if you go over that, could be $5, maybe $15, depending on the institution. That's $5 or $15 you could have had and kept in your savings account. So that's losing money. So that's definitely something that you'd want to think about as well. All right, next slide, please. And I think one more time, I'm not showing anything on it yet. All righty. So what you want to do now is essentially the first thing you want to do, just to kind of get better at saving in itself, is have an emergency fund. Start there. So like Dave Ramsey says, you want to basically come up with at least $1,000, as quickly as you can. Have $1,000 and just keep it in your savings account. So then that way, as you're attempting to kind of, come up with more money, you're able to kind of have a peace of mind knowing that once I pay all my bills, whether it be my electric bill, everything that is basically mandatory, it's taken care of. And even though I don't have any money left, I still have that $1,000 for emergencies, right? In case, let's just say your car breaks down. If your car breaks down, what are you going to do if you don't have any more money, right? So that $1,000 can actually help you and give you that peace of mind to say, you know what, at least I can go ahead and take care of that, and I can still make it to work. Or maybe the AC breaks down, or stops working. For those who own homes, what can you do? At that point, you have that emergency fund. It's kind of there to kind of help you. But the first thing you want to do is at least come up with $1,000 to kind of help you there. Next slide, please. All right, perfect. And then the other thing too is purchasing. And purchasing stuff is essentially just anything. It could be, oh, I want that new watch. Can you hold off before you actually purchase that new watch, right? Can you either set up a plan to where you can save up to actually purchase that watch, right? And what you want to do is break it down. So as we go along here, we're gonna see how you'd be able to break everything down to basically where you have an intention when it comes to every dollar that you have. There's a purpose for each dollar that you have. All right, and the next slide again. All right, so then once you have your emergency fund in place, and then you hold off on purchasing just anything and kind of save in that regard, then at that point you'd be looking at kind of trying to build wealth. You want to build wealth in the sense of for the future, because eventually right now most of us would be in the earning phase of your life, right? So you will go to work, you trade your time for helping out at work or doing your job. So that in itself is definitely something that you want to think of. You want to think of the future because it's quick. It comes up on you really fast. So it's something that you want to make sure you're prepared for as well. All right, next slide. It's going to be a video on fixed expenses.
How to save on fixed expenses. The most difficult area to save money is on your fixed expenses like rent and utilities. You may not be able to address them right away, but throughout the year, you may find opportunities to save money. 1. When your lease is up, look for a cheaper place to live. You may also look into negotiating a longer-term lease at a lower rate. Consider getting one or more roommates. 2. Contact your internet, cell phone, and/or insurance company to negotiate a better rate, or consider switching companies for introductory rates. 3. Contact your credit card company to negotiate a lower interest rate or eliminate fees. How to research housing.
All right, so that kind of just gives you an idea of how you could be able to kind of save, so that way you have a little bit more to put aside. Just thinking about other ways you can cut down, right? And it's very important, especially let's just say we did bring up the fact that you want to first start off with an emergency fund. The next slide is going to basically give you an idea of just that. So basically, you want at least 3 to 6 months worth of emergency expenses, if you will. So that 3 to 6 months, we're looking at if anything was to happen today, are you going to be able to basically sustain your life as it is right now? Are you going to be able to manage paying your electricity, paying your rent? Are you going to be able to manage to get to work, right? So the 3 to 6 months, it's not income. Essentially, it's just money that's going to be there to give you that peace of mind. That's essentially what it is. All right. And the next slide here is going to show you a video on flexible expenses.
How to save on flexible expenses. 1. Look for coupons or apps to save on items that you buy regularly. Shop at discount grocery stores. 2. Plan and look for sales to find affordable clothing. 3. Save on utilities by turning off lights and watching how much water you use. Use energy-efficient light bulbs and set the heat or air conditioning at a reasonable temperature. 4. Look for alternative ways to purchase your textbooks. For example, buy used or rent. Search online for the best price. 5. Consider alternative transportation to driving. Use public transportation, carpool, or ride a bike.
How to save on fixed expenses.
Right. So again, it's just really trying to cut cost, right? And purchasing stuff is basically what's going to be the key as far as how you accomplish your savings goals, right? If you want a vacation, you want a new car, or you want to go on spring break, or you want to purchase a house, you need a down payment. Of course, there's definitely programs there that have first-time home buyer programs if you haven't bought a house before yet, but those programs will be able to help save, when it comes to that daunting task, if you will. Large purchases, you want to purchase a car, you need to basically think about whether or not you want a new car or a used car, or do you want something that's just point A to point B, right? So that's definitely ways to think about it. And the next slide is basically where you'd ask yourself, how much do I want this item, or how much do I want that new car? How much do I want to go on that vacation? So essentially, you want to think about all those things and ask yourself before you actually spend. So then that way you're well aware of the game plan as far as what you need to do, right? So next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So pay yourself first. Essentially, it is really just that. It's breaking everything down and basically utilizing the tools that are at your disposal. I'm actually somebody that you can utilize as well. Patrick, hey, I need to save. I'm having trouble with this. How can I accomplish that? And that's really what we're trying to do here with this workshop, is to give you those tools. So you want to think about your long-term goals and your short-term goals, right? When it comes to saving. How long is it going to take me to actually accomplish this goal? How long is it going to take me to save up to purchase that car? How long is it going to take to save up to have a down payment for a house, right? So those are the things that you want to think about. So the next video will give you more of short-term goals or short-term when it comes to saving as well.
Hey guys, it's person, you will one day be of the age where that money will be available to you and you will need it. So a retirement account is a must. Number 3 is short-term savings. Now this is all of your savings that should be in a liquid or readily available account, but which are not your emergency fund. And it's very important that when you are using savings accounts for short-term saving goals, like you're saving for a trip or maybe some new stuff for your apartment or even to move to a new apartment, it should never be in the same account as your emergency fund. When those amounts are conflated, it's easy to overdraw, and it's also easy to not really know on a day-to-day basis what money is for that emergency fund and what money is for that goal. Many people find it very helpful to have many savings accounts for many different short-term savings goals, and especially going in and changing those account names from some random generated number to the name of that goal can be very, very helpful in keeping that goal top of mind, which helps you when you're deciding between spending 20 bucks on some fast fashion top or putting it toward that bigger, longer term goal. But longer term is relative, and even something that's going to happen within a year is still considered a short-term goal in the money world. Of course, you want to use the same strategy as with your emergency fund to find the higher yield accounts, but they still should be accessible to you, because if you need to get the money out in 6 months, you don't want to be in an account that would penalize you for doing it. We have TFD contributors who literally have up to 20 savings accounts that they're using for tons of different things, which not only allows them to clearly see all the different goals and how close or far away they are from hitting those goals, but also allows that money to be totally in clean categories and not mixed up with one another, where it's hard to really see what money is for what. That multiple savings account strategy is especially useful if you're someone who has a hard time reaching your goals. The less disciplined you are with saving for specific things, the more likely you should be using each account for a different goal. And lastly, I do still encourage that you keep your savings accounts away from the bank that you use for your checking account. When it's super easy to just reach into that other account and grab out a little money, you will do it much more often than you think. The last category is long-term savings accounts. Now,
All righty. All right.
Before we
So,
move on, we're going to launch a poll just to see where we're at. Does that sound like a good idea? All right, so you've heard everything so far about how to paying yourself first, right? So you should be seeing a poll. You have about 20 seconds. So go ahead and answer that. And all right, almost there. Good, good job. All right. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and end the poll at this time. So it does not matter if you put money into your savings first when doing your budget, as long as you put money into your savings account after all your bills have been paid. So the answer is false. We're learning that we need to pay ourselves first. So good job, everyone. Thanks for participating.
all right. Okay. So moving along, the next slide here is basically going to illustrate how you'd want to, break down your savings goal, right? So let's say you're saving for a vacation, and that vacation is going to cost, let's say, $3,000, for all expenses paid. You want to ask yourself, how much, in this case, is $3,000, and how long will it take you to get to that? So if you want to go on vacation in 3 months and you know it's going to take you 6 months, then at that point, you're not going to go, right? It's just one of those things where you have to plan accordingly and be disciplined enough to say, I'm going to put $500 every month into my savings account, or in my vacation account, if you will. So that way, I know, rest assured, that I'll be able to go on vacation 6 months from now, right? So when we spoke about the money market and the savings and the checking account, it's essentially you can have more than one account. You break them down and you actually name them as far as what that account is for. So when you have your checking account, you can have it from your main account, right? And then with mobile banking, you're able to kind of have another account and have it transfer a certain amount, whether it be a percentage or a fixed amount, in this case, $500, to go directly into that account, which would be out of sight, out of mind. And that kind of allows you, or gives you, that discipline or structure, so that way you don't spend that money. All right. So next slide kind of gives you an idea of how much it would be if, let's just say, it was every week, right? So for a $3,000 vacation, $125 would be going into your account. You can actually break it down that way as well. Now, most people get paid bi-weekly. Some people get paid weekly. So that's why it's important to have this illustration as well. So that way you know exactly how much you'll be putting aside every week if you get paid weekly. So that way you can make it to, Mexico or wherever it is, France or Paris, wherever you want to go on vacation, it's going to happen because you have a structure in place. The other thing too is for the next slide here, it's going to show you that, it could also be daily. You could put $17 aside every day, every day, or maybe it could be an hour that you work. If you make $17, you know that, okay, that 1 hour is dedicated to my vacation, right? So you put that aside and you know that, okay, I know we got the, especially if it's $17 an hour, $17, then at that point it's like out of sight, out of mind, and you kind of like just make it a small, 17 could be a McDonald's meal, right? If you know that you want to go on vacation in 6 months, maybe you cut off on McDonald's, and you make sure that you have that intention about it. All right. So the next slide is going to go ahead and talk about long-term goals, and this could be more like saving for a house or something like that.
Little money, you will do it much more often than you think. The last category is long-term savings accounts. Now, these are for all of your goals that are somewhere between that short-term stuff and the retirement account. Generally speaking, this is stuff that you're planning for about 5 to 10 years down the road. For many of us, it might be things like buying a home or going back to school or making some really big life change. And for this kind of goal, you're going to want a mix of those high-yield savings accounts and some investment accounts, which are not retirement accounts, it should be said. As Dan Kellemeyer of New Heights Financial Planning puts it, investment accounts should be used for savers who don't need that money for at least 5 or 10 years. If you want to save for a down payment on your house in 3 years, an investment account may bring much higher returns, but you risk actually losing money in the market, which is why it can be important to keep a mix of different accounts for these longer term goals so that you're able to better weather those potential fluctuations in the market. For these kind of goals, and especially being strategic about the kinds of accounts you're using, this is an area where it can be beneficial to speak to a financial planner. But if that's something that's not in your budget, we'll also link you in the description for a good explainer on saving for these medium-term goals in the way that best hits that balance between higher returns and lower risk. And whichever savings goal you're working toward or account you're feeding into, do remember that one of the most important things when it comes to any savings goal is to make sure that money is automatically deducted from your paycheck if at all possible. You should not see that money and have to physically move it over because A, you may forget to do that, as many of us do, but also B, in that actual movement, you are so easily tempted by other things that you could do with that money that would be maybe more immediately satisfying. Anytime you leave it up to human error to make sure that money gets into the right account, you're giving it another chance to not actually make it all the way into savings. A balanced, goal-oriented savings strategy is one of the biggest keys to long-term financial health. And starting with an emergency fund and even just putting $5 a month into that account, it's something that is accessible to everyone. It may seem like a goal that is so far away from you today to have a healthy retirement account or a full-up emergency fund or a few different long-term and short-term savings goals, but everyone has to start with that first step and that first dollar into the account. And often opening that account itself can be half the battle. And if you're ever looking for
All right, moving along. So we did hint at saving for a long term. It could be, of course, a house down payment. And basically you'd be looking at, well, I want to purchase a home, let's say in 5 years, and I want to make sure I put down, let's say 20%. Usually most people want to put 20% to avoid that PMI. But at the same time, it's one of those things where, you know, your intention about, you know, buying or purchasing that house in 5 years. So this illustration here is just going to show you basically how much you need to put aside every month, so that way you can actually hit that goal, right? So $667 every month in 5 years is basically going to give you that intention to actually meet that goal and actually purchase that dream house that you want, right? And the next illustration on the next slide here will show you $154 a week is definitely another way you want to look at it as far as how much you'd be putting aside. Then the next slide would be based on a daily basis, which would be $22 every day. Again, that's a McDonald's Happy Meal, or not Happy Meal, but rather meal with a soda on the side, and, you know, save. You know, you want to buy that house, then you want to cut off that fast food there. So the next slide will be more on emergency savings. We're going to go ahead and watch that, and I'll go ahead and speak to that in a second.
Accounts everyone needs. Number one is your emergency savings. Now, if there's one subject that we tend to harp on more than any other at TFD, it is the immense importance of an emergency fund. And we suggest that you create this before you even start aggressively repaying debt or making any other big moves toward your financial future. Because the truth is, without an emergency savings account, literally any unexpected problem in your life, from losing your job to getting injured without the right coverage, to even even just having to unexpectedly move can literally destroy your finances. This money is there for you to tap into when something unexpected happens so that you don't have to, for example, put it on a credit card you can't pay back, borrow the money on really terrible terms, or simply not be able to deal with that problem and go into debt or collections. In the case of needing it to move unexpectedly, not having that savings could literally leave you homeless. But despite its importance, emergency funds are not as universal as you would think they would be. In fact, only 30% of millennials have an emergency fund that could cover 3 months of expenses. And that is about the average amount recommended to have in this account. It's easy to think of, for example, in terms of losing your job. It would allow you that 3-month buffer to not be evicted from your home or not be able to feed yourself. And when we say 3 months of expenses, that's your bare minimum just being able to live and pay your bills expenses. It's not a fun 3 months. This lack of emergency fund directly explains why about half of Americans are an unexpected $400 expense from serious financial ruin. That simple $400 expense could leave them literally unable to pay the rest of their bills, including the one they need to live in their home. And while your emergency fund must be in a normal savings account that is totally liquid, which means you can take that money out at any time, hence break in case of emergency, I recommend personally that you keep this savings account at a bank totally separate from your checking account, especially if you're someone who, like me, has a hard time really meeting those savings goals without just siphoning off a little here and there, because why not? Having that money not be in any way attached to your card or even the bank account linked to your debit card means that you really have to go out of your way to take that money out on a day-to-day basis. And that could be the difference between keeping that $50 in there or transferring that $50 out of your emergency fund to pay for a night out with friends. There are high yield savings accounts options which are still totally liquid, and we'll link you to that in the description. But do keep in mind that the most important thing is that this money be available in an emergency. So tying it up in a longer term, for example, retirement account, which has serious penalties to taking out the money early, is a mistake. But above all, whether you're able to put 20% of each paycheck into your emergency fund until it's full up, or you can only afford to put in $5 a month, it needs to be your savings priority. If you don't have an emergency fund, you should consider yourself in a state of emergency. Number 2 is retirement savings. Now, I put the retirement savings account immediately what you should be doing with that.
All right, this sounds like a good time to do another self-check. So if you can answer the question, what should you be saving for? And we have just another 10 seconds. Good. You're all doing good. All right. Okay, let's end the poll. So really, all of the answers are correct. Not a trick question, but the idea is that you definitely want to be saving for all of the 3 items: emergency fund, as we've heard today, for a major purchase if you have that goal in mind, and to build wealth. You know, someday we want to retire. I know I do. So definitely you want to make sure you have you're saving for if not at least one of these, if not all 3, but at least one of these. So thank you.
All right. And just to add on that, if nothing else, at least, start saving for that emergency fund. Basically, because when it rains, it pours, and, it's just one of those things where, we all have to have some kind of money put aside for that. All right. So just in wrapping here, we're kind of coming close to the end of the presentation. I just want to go ahead and just illustrate again on the next slide here, which is checking and savings, basically to give you the differences there. So as far as our checking accounts is basically for spending, we do have no fees as far as the checking accounts are concerned. Then, of course, depending on which institution you go to, they may charge you either $20 or $25 to open the account, and then, of course, you'd have a debit card and overdraft protection in that regard. But again, that is your transaction account. Then, of course, your savings account, you only have 6 withdrawals. So if you do keep it the way it is, at least make sure that if you're going to withdraw from there, it's a large enough amount to where you don't exceed the 6 withdrawals. So that way you can still save on that money as well. And of course, they may have fees if you continue to withdraw from that. And of course, with the savings account, if you go beyond the 6, it may actually end up being turned into a checking account. I've seen it either closed or turned into a checking account. So that's definitely something you want to be aware of. Now, I made sure that we added a retirement piece to this as well, because it is very important. So the next video here is going to show you or talk about retirement. We don't have to watch the whole video, just a snippet of it as well, please.
Emergency. Number 2 is retirement savings. Now, I put the retirement savings account immediately after the emergency fund in terms of importance because in addition to retirement savings being incredibly important, they're also some of the most potentially advantageous savings accounts that you can have. Many of them are tax advantaged, and some of them even come with an employer match. If you are one of the people who has a 401k available to you at work, you should be taking advantage of it, particularly if there is a match available. And what that means essentially is that for every dollar you put into that account, your employer will match a certain amount. If it is at all possible for you to do, you should be maxing out that match because it's frankly free money. And if you don't have access to a 401k, there are many other individual retirement accounts or IRAs available to you. And in the retirement account field, there's actually a bit of good news compared to how not great the news is for emergency funds. Around 82% of millennials are contributing to their 401ks, along with about 77% of Gen Xers. And this is great because investing early gives you one of the biggest financial advantages possible, which is a lot of time for that money to accrue compound interest. If it is at all possible, you should be contributing to your 401k at least to the top of your match. And beyond that, you can contribute more to your 401k, or you can open an additional retirement account. There are many different types of retirement accounts depending on your needs, and you can either do that research yourself, and we'll link you in the description to a great explainer on the different types of retirement accounts available, or you could speak with a financial planner. And remember that one of the most important things to keep in mind with retirement accounts is that unlike your other savings accounts, these are accounts that you should never ever touch if you can at all avoid it. There are a few rare cases in which there is more advantage to breaking a retirement account to make a different financial decision with that money. But in the vast majority of cases, it should never be done because the tax benefits that come with a retirement account only apply when you let that account come to maturity. If you take that money out early, it is fully taxed and penalized. The entire tax advantage system exists so that that money will stay in these accounts for a long time, which is beneficial to the country for many reasons. Generally speaking, that money in your retirement account, while it is great to look at from time to time and watch your net worth grow and all of that stuff, should never ever be treated as money that is available to you. And while it can sometimes feel hard to imagine as a young, healthy, sprightly, active person, you will one day be of the age where that money will be available to you and you will need it. So a retirement account is a must. Number 3 is short-term savings. Now this is all of your savings that should be.
All right. So as far as the retirement and Roth IRAs and 401k, if you do have the ability to contribute through your employer, I definitely highly encourage that you do so, only because it actually helps in the sense that they may match it to a certain percentage. So you definitely want to make sure that you take advantage of that. And you can definitely have a Roth IRA and a 401k as well. So there's no limitation to that. You can definitely do that. So definitely encourage doing that as well. The last thing here, we do have the savings versus money market account. So basically, again, we already spoke about the savings itself, but the money market account is basically there is no limit on withdrawals. It definitely earns a little bit more interest when it comes to savings, the savings account, if you will. And of course, there's a larger amount as far as opening it, as opposed to $5, basically looking at $1,000 to open that. But it kind of gives you that idea of the feel of a checking account, but you're still able to kind of save at the same time and get even more interest, which kind of help you, in building that strong savings account. All right. Then the next slide, please. All right, so next slide is basically, since I am with OneAZ, we do have what we call mobile banking. The reason why we have this slide here is because we want to make sure we double down as far as when you do have those accounts, you can go ahead and name each account to a specific goal in mind, right? You want to make sure you have that in place. So if nothing else, start there, even if it means it's $1 that you put in there or $2, whatever the case may be, but make sure that every dollar counts and counts for something and it has a purpose. And that's basically what I can definitely tell you here. So utilizing all these tools is definitely something that, if nothing else, you can take from this webinar is that you can save, even though it's difficult. I know it is even for me. You can definitely do it as long as you use those tools according to what they're intended for. And basically, that's how you want to go about it. So the next slide here is just basically going to show you the partnership with Pima Community College and OneAZ Credit Union. Basically, we want to give back to you. We want to give back to the community. So for any of you who are looking to get, whether it be a savings account or checking account or a money market account, we can assist with that. And in doing so, you get $100 as well in your pocket because you go to Pima. And that's another added benefit for going to Pima, other than just, getting your education and getting that strong foundation. You get that in your pocket as well. All right. So thank you very much. On the next slide here is just thanking each and every one of you for being a part of this webinar or workshop, if you will. Again, my name is Patrick, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now. And of course, you can always reach out to me as well.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. This is great information. So sorry. Really.
Yeah, so we're open to any questions if you have any, or if we have an activity, we can go from there.
So we do have questions, Patrick. We have multiple questions. So I'm going to start reading them out so you can answer them. Is it possible to have multiple savings and checkings account? If so, what are the pros and cons versus only having one of each?
You can definitely have more than one. The pros are basically, you have that account that will be out of sight, out of mind. So definitely, I encourage, if you do have the means to do so, if you're looking to do that, yes, definitely have more than one account. So then that way you have every intention for each particular account, and you can name them vacation. You can name them, in this case, being you're in school, you can start saving for that next semester, start saving for the books, right? I know how expensive books are. I don't know if they still are, but when I went to school, I definitely remember those books being very expensive. So you can start ahead. You can be like, you know what, instead of getting that coffee today, I'm going to save this money towards that next book for that next, class. So yes, you can have more than one.
Okay. So talking about percentages, what percentages of your paycheck should go towards discretionary expense purchases?
So essentially what you'd want to do is what we call a 50-30-20 rule. Basically with that is 50% is going to be dedicated to all your expenses, your daily expenses that you need for your household, right? Utilities and the whole nine. And then 30% of that can then go to, whatever it is that you need. You want to go out for coffee, you want to go out and buy, some clothes, whatever the case may be, or that's going to be for the wants, right? And then the 20% is what you do not touch. No matter what, have that discipline built to where you do not touch it. So that's at least 3 accounts right there that you can at least have, so that way you have those percentages allocated accordingly.
Okay, there's a question about wealth. I know you mentioned, okay, you have your emergency funds, you have different funds, but Okay, you're mentioning also investments and other things. How do you build wealth?
How do you build wealth? You build wealth, one, by not by basically keeping your means, your living expenses low. And what I mean by that is, let's say right now you're making, let's say 30,000 a year, right? And then next year you get a job where you're getting 60,000 a year, right? So rather than going out there and buying that next new car, right, which is made basically what you'd want to do, because oh, I'm making more, a little bit more, I can afford it. How about just keeping your expenses the same way that they are now, right? And then you are already living off of 30,000. That other 30 you can use to save, whether it be investments or save for a down payment, whatever the case may be, but you put that aside. So for instance, what I do is, yes, I got a promotion, so I got a little bit more, right? So rather than going and spending that money, I made sure that the first thing that I did as soon as I reported to work, I changed my 401k withholding, right? Made sure that it added to that extra that I got. So that way I don't touch it, because I'm living off of the same and keeping my expenses low. You keep your expenses low, that's going to help you build your wealth. And then, of course, you utilizing that extra income and actually putting it in the right investments by, of course, either sitting down and talking to an investment advisor so they can help you go over a goals-based analysis. So that's really how, in a nutshell, how you're going to help build that wealth.
There was a portion in the video where it mentioned about negotiating lower interest rates on things, on credit cards or other items. What do you suggest?
Absolutely. So this is something that I actually learned. So essentially, with every role that I've been in, I've always wanted to learn, everything that I can. And the one thing that I learned when I was working at Chase Bank was that people can call in. Let's just say you have a credit card. You can actually call in as long as you make your payments on time and you don't miss any payments at all, and you keep your utilization within that 30% to 10% range. That's going to actually give you that good grace with the bank. So you can call them and say, hey, can I get a lower interest rate? Believe you me, they'll actually lower it as long as you're in good standing. Or you can ask for a credit line increase, right? So there's definitely certain perks for staying in good graces of all the banks, whether it be a credit union or a large bank. They can actually help you with that and actually lower your interest rate as well.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a person thinking about getting a car. Is it better to go to like a credit union and try to get a loan there before going to the dealer, or should she go to the dealer and try to get a better price there?
So here's the thing. So of course, we're talking about more like credit in this aspect, because in order for you to get a car, your credit has to be in a certain standing, in good standing, if you will, right? So if you go straight to the dealership, which nothing is wrong with that, you definitely can. However, what the dealership will do is they're going to get your information, your credit application, and they're going to submit it to different banks. So all those banks are going to go ahead and pull your credit to see exactly whether or not they can give you that loan, right? Whereas if you go to either a credit union or you go straight to a bank, the bank is going to have just that one application, because they just want to pull it to see whether or not we can extend that credit to you, right? So if you would ask me, I would say go to either the bank or the credit union first. So then that way you get that pre-approval. Then you go to the dealership. The dealership then will go ahead and run the numbers based off of that institution that you went to. And again, I'd say go to a credit union, not because I work for one, but because we do have low interest rates compared to those of the larger banks, right? So it doesn't have to be OneAZ, it could be any credit union, but we do have pretty low interest rates when it comes to certain products.
All right, so hopefully we have enough time for all these questions, but we do have a lot. So after saving for up to 3 or 6 months, you got your emergency funds, right? Now, where should the money go? Should it be invested? And if I do invest it, what is the beginner's guide for investing?
Beginner's guide for investing. Now this is a hot topic, but this is a topic we'll definitely have in April, so you cannot miss it because we do have a special guest that's going to actually break it down. This is basically one of our wealth management leaders. But the first thing that I would do is you'd sit down with an advisor, whether it be at a bank or a credit union, and go over your goals-based analysis. That's the first thing you want to do, right? You have your 3 to 6 months expenses for emergency set aside, which is great. The next thing would be, kind of just a savings for yourself, right? But once you go to that advisor and you sit down and say, hey, I would like to retire at this age, or hey, I'd like to purchase a home around this time, what we'll do is when we sit down with you, we'll go over goals-based analysis and say, okay, how can we give you a game plan to help you achieve that, right? And that's basically where you'd want to start. So the beginners is to start there, have a professional sit down with you, and then of course have a game plan so that way you can then execute intentionally.
Okay, because there's a similar question, and I know I guess there's different explanations on emergency funds, but when do you stop putting money in the emergency funds and start investing or start doing something else with your money?
Honestly, the way I see it is as long as you have now three months is minimum. 6 months is just, I would say, middle, right? The whole idea is if anything happened and you weren't able to earn any income, how long will you be able to survive on that money that you've set aside? So emergency fund is not so much that you want to max it out all the way to the 6 months, but rather build a strong enough emergency fund where it could be even a year or even 2 years. As long as you can afford it, just have it to where you have it broken down. A certain percentage will go into that account at all times, right? It doesn't hurt, it only helps you. So that's really how I'd answer that. And I hope it does make any sense. It makes sense, but I wouldn't stop adding to that, because when it rains, it pours, and when it pours hard. So you cannot, you cannot account for, how long that rough patch will last, right? So you never know. Mm-hmm.
Cool, awesome. There's a lot of questions on RRAs and 401ks. Mm-hmm. I know we do have a session on retirement, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But you can a bit a preview of RA 401. I think we have like 3 or 4 questions on them.
I'm sorry, you cut out
retirement.
There. What was the question?
So can you give us a preview on IRAs and 401ks? I know we have a whole session on retirement. Yeah,
so IRAs is really just an individual retirement account that you yourself would manage and actually put into. And then of course with the 401k is more of employee based, right? So if let's just say you're looking for a job, or if you already have one, or you want to go ahead and look into the employee handbook and look at how much they match when it comes to the 401k, because that's free money and you want to make sure you maximize that amount. So if anything else, once you have your emergency fund where you feel you're comfortable, then I'll go ahead and transition to that 401k, so that way it's taken out of my paycheck before I even see it, and it's actually going into that, so I can maximize that amount. If it's 6%, that's 6% of your money that they're putting or adding to. So that kind of helps you when it comes to retirement, to where you don't have to worry about it, right? So that's basically how you want to look at that.
And we're not going to have time for the rest of the questions, but Carla has an activity for us that we're going to do. So take it away, Carla.
Thank you. Right. Great questions. I mean, savings is an amazing topic. It affects all of us, right? Great information, Patrick, for sharing today. And just know we will get to all your questions. So in the meantime, though, I'm going to ask you all, we're going to do a pop quiz, but you're not getting graded, so it's okay. So I'm going to ask you all to log into www.menti.com. You can either do it on the same device that you're watching the presentation, or if you have a separate device, you could do that too. So either way, just go ahead and open up a new browser and enter www.menti.com. And then as you open up the browser, it will ask you to enter a code, and that code is 39394687. Okay, so I'll give you just a moment to get that squared away. So again, the code is 39394687. All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to ask you a few questions based on today's topics, and we're going to just do a little warm up here with this next question. So as the question shows up, which one are you when it comes to making a purchase? Are you the type of person that is, first of all things, is there room in the budget? Or are you the one that's like, well, I'm on a budget, but it's on sale type of thing? So which one are you? All right. Seems like predominantly budgets rule. All right. All right. And there is no wrong or right answer, really. We do want to encourage you to think about your budget, so that's a good thing, but this is just to get you just warmed up with Menti. So awesome. Thank you for your participation. All right, so let's get into the real questions. So sorry, let me skip this one. My apologies. Money market versus savings, all right? So remember what we talked about today, money market accounts and savings, right? So money market accounts and money market investment accounts are the same. True or false? All right. Don't be shy. Answer. All right. So the answer is, drum roll. Okay. I think most of you. So the answer is false. Money market accounts are not the same as money market investment accounts. So their money market investment accounts are a little bit riskier. They may yield more interest, but again, it's not a fixed interest. And then money market accounts typically have a fixed interest and are not as risky considering the difference between the two. So Patrick, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but just in general, even though the name is very similar, they are two different types of investment accounts. So just be aware of that.
Yes, definitely. They're definitely different. And of course, with the money market accounts, as we stated, it's one of those things where it's a little bit liquid. It's basically an account that you can access those funds easily and readily available to you. With the money market investment account, on the other hand, it's not money that you can access right away. So essentially, if you put money in there, you'd have to kind of liquidate them, basically sell your withholding or whatever your holdings in order for you to actually have access to it. And then at which point it does take 2 to 3 business days for you to actually have those funds at that point. So yeah, that's the major difference there.
Thank you. All right, next question. Would you use a savings account for the following? So you can just pretty much indicate whether you agree or strongly disagree for each of the 3 items. All right, so not a trick question, but so a savings account typically has doesn't yield as much interest. So again, there's no right or wrong answer. But oops, sorry. So a savings account is something that you would generally use for maybe an emergency fund where it's just an amount to keep you from maybe borrowing or using a credit card, etc., depending on your finances. But a savings account is not going to yield as much interest as maybe another type of savings account. So if you're looking, you have the recommendation is typically that if you have a goal that is a healthy amount or a healthy sum, like maybe a down payment for a house or maybe buying a brand new car, maybe you would want to use a different type of savings account rather than just a regular savings account. Patrick, do you have
Right.
anything you want to add?
So essentially, that's where the money market account comes in, because you're gonna gain or get a little bit more interest as opposed to a savings account. And even though it's more liquid, basically you want to kind of use that account for that large purchase later on down the road, right? So the whole idea is that once you get to the point where you want to purchase that home, you can always write a check from that money market, because you can actually get checks from it, or use that debit card that comes with that account for that sole purpose. But other than that, that's basically the major difference there, and that's why you'd want to use that account for it.
Thank you. Right. Another question here. Money market accounts and savings accounts are both insured by the Federal Depository, the FDIC. I lost my train of thought. All right. Good job. Yes, they are. Money market accounts and savings accounts are both insured by the FDIC. Yes, that is correct. Where, for example, a money market investment account would not be insured by the FDIC.
Right.
All right. Okay, we have time for maybe just a couple more questions. Okay, would you use a money market account for the following? So just again, thinking of long-term versus short-term type savings. All right. And again, there's no right or wrong. You can, as long as you're saving, you're in the right path, right? But it's just knowing what kinds of options you have as far as saving goes. But good job. So most of you feel strongly about a larger purchase or a larger sum, a larger goal. You would use a money market account, which is the ideal, is to put wherever it is that you need to put more money into the account. That is what you would want to use a money market account for. So this is great, everyone. Thank you for participating. So I'm going to go ahead and take it back to Q&A. So I'll stop sharing at this time.
Tony, how many more questions did we have? Do we still have quite a few that have been asked for us to go through?
I think like 6 or 7 more.
Okay, let's maybe take another 2-3 minutes. Any that we don't get answered here live, we can always follow up with Patrick afterwards. We will share contact information here in a bit and also can follow up accordingly. But yeah, let's take a few more questions for about another minute or two.
Okay, so money in check-ins. Shall we always keep money in our check-ins? Is that at all times? That's a question, Patrick.
So essentially, once you have your money in your checking account, you want to make sure you take care of your day-to-day expenses, not day-to-day rather, but your utilities, anything that has to do with your household, your bills. Once your bills are taken care of, then at that point, you can then transition that money into your savings at that point, but preferably in money market if you're saving something larger. But if you do if you go for the 50-30-20 rule, then at that point you can have 3 different accounts, and then you can have it allocated accordingly. So once you have it in your checking, you have it automatically set to where it goes into your savings or it goes into your vacation, whatever the case may be. But once you have more than one account, you can definitely do that. Okay. So not checking, to answer your question, no, because you won't really earn any interest if you're keeping that money in there long term.
Okay. Here's a question about OneAZ. Is it pretty easy to open an account with OneAZ? Can I do it online? How exactly does it work?
Absolutely. So it's very easy. We have adopted this strategy where it's bank when, where, and how you want. So we're shifting to the omni-channel, which is basically online. So for anyone here looking to open an account, we can definitely make it easy for you to where you don't have to travel or go to the branch. We can do it via Zoom. So we're able to do that now. And of course, you can open it online. However, if you're going to open it, you might as well get $100 for it as well. So, that's when you kind of you reach out to us, or we reach out to you. We open it for you, and then we put the special code in there to make sure that you get your $100 for opening it as well.
Cool. Here's a very specific question. Somebody had an emergency fund set up in New York City since they were 11 years old. One day they received a letter that the money was going to be transferred to the state of Arizona. I had to go and close out the account. Is it legal for the state to request savings to be transferred to other states?
I can't really speak on what institution that was, but I do know that if you have money in an account and it stays dormant and there's no activity at all, the account can be closed, and then they can send you a check, and then you can deposit it wherever you want to go, or whether if you're in a different state and what have you. So I don't really know exactly what the particulars were for them to do that. But I do know that if it stays dormant, then that's basically what would happen.
Cool. Now we're talking about investment accounts. Is it best to go to a credit union, a bank, an advising firm like Ed Jones or Charles Schwab? Like, how do you start the investment process?
So the investment process is one of those things where yes, you can go to any of those. The only thing is, what are the fees? That come with it. So you go to Edward Jones, you go for a consultation, whatever the case may be, they're going to charge you a fee for that. If you go to a credit union, I'm not saying OneAZ, but any credit union, at least for us, I can speak for us, there is no fee for that consultation. So when we sit down, we go over a goals-based analysis with you, it's not going to cost you a thing, right? And then if you want to then invest with us at that point, then of course, there will be some kind of fee, but it won't be anywhere close to what the larger institutions would charge.
Cool. So a CD, is that more of an investment account as opposed to a savings account?
A CD is more of just an account that locks that money in. For people that are like myself who have a difficult time saving, I can utilize a CD for a short period of time. Let's say I'll have it for a year, so which means I give them $1,000 and they'll hold it for a year, and I'll earn some kind of interest at the end of that period when it matures, right? So it's just a vehicle to hold that money until such a period of time. That's basically what the difference, what it is, what it entails rather.
Okay, so we have another question. It says, is money market account the same as a high yield savings account?
Essentially, it just means how much are you going to need to actually open that account. With us, as far as a money market account, it'll be $1,000 to have that. High yield, it could be close to $10,000 in there to start it out, right? So it's all about tiers. That's basically what it comes down to. So depending on how much money you're going to put in there is where they put you. Money market, $1,000 to start, and then high yield savings is $10,000 or more, depending on which institution you go to.
Cool, thank you. I believe that was our last question.
All right.
Thank you for answering those questions, Patrick, and thank everyone for following us on social media accounts like Pima's First Year Experience Program and the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. Those of you that entered the drawing and following people are winners, congratulations. Where's the drums? We got drum rolls? No. Rihanna Molanto and Benici Zachary. Did I say those right? Did I chop them up? Congratulations. You each won a Pima water bottle. I guess there's pictures somewhere. I don't know. The script says you can see them on the slide. There it is. That's what you won. We will send them soon to your mailing address provided in your Pima student profile. Please allow it a few weeks for us to get them packaged and delivered to you in the mail. If you do not receive it in a month, please follow up and so we can troubleshoot and track the price down. But thank you for following us.
All right, and thanks again, everyone. Thank you for attending this session of Money Matters. But before you leave, we hope that you found great value in the information that was shared with you today, and that you enjoyed this session as well and the activities. Our next session will be March 10th at 4:30 p.m. as well. Same place, Zoom. The topic will be borrowing. So please make sure you RSVP at the link shared in the chat shortly with you. And as a reminder, if you do attend all 3 Spring Money Matters sessions, you will be entered into a drawing for a $250 award to be applied to tuition at Pima, either for this coming summer or next fall semester. So if you do attend all 3, there will be a winner. So please join us. We also, last but not least, we ask you to please take a moment to complete the survey to let us know how we did today. We really appreciate your feedback, and it helps us improve. And also, again, completing the survey will earn you a certificate of completion. So the certificate of completion will be emailed to you in the next few weeks. And a huge thanks to our partners from OneAZ Credit Union, to PCC First Year Experience, and the team members from the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. If you would like to follow up with us and contact us, our information is shared on the screen here shortly. And so please, again, thank you for your time, and we appreciate you being here. So the links are on the web page, or on the screen. Sorry, it's late in the day. Dinner's ready, right? Sorry. We really thank you. So please follow us. The registration link again is open currently, so you can just go to the events page for the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
Good night.